Hello and welcome to another edition of Couch Conchology. Today I would like to elaborate a bit on the early stages of the shell collection by talking about identification and taxonomy. Now that might seem intimidating at first, but I found out that the small library that I began with had one thing in common. All the books used names for the shells. And the How and Why Wonder book frequently uses the common names for the shells, such as the Atlantic bay scallop or the lightning whelk, but it also mentions the 5 classes of mollusks. Many of us learned basic taxonomy in school, the structure of the scientific names with King Phil came over for good spaghetti. So the K is kingdom, Animalia is the kingdom. P is phylum, the phylum is Mollusca. C is class, and there are 5 main classes of mollusks. One is the gastropoda, the snails or the single-shelled mollusks. Bivalvia, the 2-shelled mollusks such as clams. Cephalopoda, the octopus and the nautilus types. Scaphopoda, the tusk shells. Amphineura, the chitons, which have an 8-piece shell. Order breaks it down more, then family, genus, and species are the ones we become more detailed with when we actually identify the shells. Identification books would group mostly by class and family, then genus and species. So let's have a closer look at some of these, and we'll get into a little bit on that identification. Now, remember, this is pre-personal computer, internet, and smartphones. So using the books, I would try to identify my shells, and it was easier when my shell looked exactly like the picture, as we can see with this Strombus lentiginosus. Looks exactly like the picture. And one thing that helped too, the 20 cowries that I bought for $4 came with a pink slip of paper with each one that had the genus and species names on them and also the general locality. That enabled me to find that species in my books and compare the shell that I had with the illustration and those labels. And it was also possible to look on the world map and see the places they came from, like Sri Lanka, the Sulu Sea, and the Andaman Islands, and Mindanao, and where all those were located. So I got really familiar with locations on maps as well. The school library had a few shell books too, and also some encyclopedia entries. What really caught my eye was the March 1969 issue of National Geographic, and the wonderful article it has in it, The Magic Lure of Seashells. Eventually, I was able to get my own copy of it. And then there is also an earlier edition of National Geographic, an issue of 1949, July, that has an article in it, Shells Take You Over World Horizons. And I didn't know how true that would be until later. But both magazines have some really superb illustrations, photographs of shells with the names. And so with the use of these in my books I had in my library, I was getting a better understanding of keeping the collection organized and labeled. So in the future, what I'll do is I will cover the subject of labeling and storing in more detail and get into some of that a little bit more. But in the meantime, I hope you've enjoyed this video, and we'll see you next time, and thanks for watching.